board. The exercise that I've asked you to do is Lab 2, which is this Word document here describes it. It's taking the output from Lab 1 and tweaking it a bit. And so what are the tweaks that you have to do? Okay, so the first thing there is you have to create this table. Now, the table data is the same as was in Lab 1. The only difference is in Lab 1, it was presented as a list, an unordered list. And so here we're presented it as a table. Now, how we can tell it's a table, well, maybe you can't, because the borders have been made so that they're not visible, but it is a table. We've got headings that are set up there. Now, I know you could just make this a list still and, use bolding around the words, a B tag, but that's not what I want you to do there. I want you to actually create a table. When you create a table, this heading can be put on every how you call it, every row in the table can be set with the heading as the first column in that row. And that's what's happened there. So that's the comment there is the table's composed of 2 columns, and the first column is the heading. So that's what we're going to do there. Then you've got another page that you have to create from scratch. I mean, when I say create from scratch, you are not given this data in a text file like you were the other one. And so you have to create a new file, and that file you're going to call it contact.html or whatever, contact support.html. And you're going to have a table in it. And this table is going to be the more traditional, has the heading as the first row. So the first row is going to have a bunch of table head tags instead of our table detail commands. But the other thing that's really special about this table is that you have 2 rows that span and they have the same heading. Would you call it heading? No, that's not heading. They have the same service, right? So these 2 things here, retail shops, we've got 2 retail shops in this. It's not a row; it's 2 different rows, but only one column it goes over 2 rows. Oh, thanks, Najla. Um, the other thing that you're going to do in this is that you're going to use an EM tag here to produce this italics. So you got an italics going on there. Anything else going on? Oh, not a lot. Okay, so that's what you've got. The other stuff you already did in the previous lesson. That is that you've got an image. So you use an IMG tag. You've got a heading 1 and a heading 2. And you've got a bunch of paragraphs. So a P tag on each one of those. But if you've done lab 1, all of that's already done. So you need to take your lab 1. Easy way to do this, I think, would be to take your lab 1 work and tweak it. And in fact, the work that if I go back to D2L, maybe it's in this one. Yeah, if we go back to D2L, you would see that in the, let's make it bigger. You guys, can you see the screen? Did I turn it off or did I not start it? Yeah, you can see my screen. Yeah, okay. It's just that I can't see the green boundary on it. All right, so yeah, back to that. If you look at our course in the content for lab 2, I've given you 2 files. One is a compressed folder, which you can uncompress easily, and it has a text file in it and your image. And then the other one is just the instructions that we've been looking at just now. So that's there. When you're finished, you're going to have, and this is, you can see this is a solution. It's not exactly the solution for this, but if we open it, we see it's kind of like that. Yeah, that's kind of what we want you to do. So let's see what we end up with. Yeah, okay, so we got a color there that's a little bit different, but we end up with this table, which is, yeah, we've got the headings on every row. So let's look at how see how that's achieved. Now I got a chat, so I'm sick today. I'm sorry about that. Hope you get well better soon. Um, let's open this. Oh, I'm going to open it in Notepad because you would have seen the message that I sent that um, you might not have Visual Studio Code available for you when you do the test, but you'll see that uh, we'll do the update later. That Notepad, no big difference, right? I mean, so what we're looking at here, if using Notepad++, doesn't really look that much different. You know, some of the colors are a little different. The important part here, the big change that you made was you changed that list to a table. So you got a table, two table tags, a bunch of table row tags. Each line here is a table row tag. And then you have our table heading tags forming the first column. And then the second column is table detail tags. And so that's how you're going to create your table. Now, the thing about this table is it doesn't have any borders. And so how that was achieved here, we did a table collapse for the table, but then for the table detail and the table heading, I set the border to 0 pixels. Okay, so the other stuff there is, so it doesn't matter what else you tried to do with the border, it's not going to show up because I set it to 0 pixels because I was just trying to achieve this what we've got here, which is I think it's in this one. Yeah, what we got here, which is a table, but you can't see that it's a table. So that's that. Okay, now the next thing is this the contact support page. Now, actually, this is a little bit more than you've been asked to do. You're not asked to make these colors and yeah, that's actually lab 3. So I don't know how this got in there as lab 2. So don't worry about that. What you're actually supposed to do is you're supposed to make it look more like this. Okay, this one coming up. So you can see it's kind of unformatted. It doesn't have the nice um, underline of the breaking and the colored text. Don't worry, you don't need to do what I'm doing here. Just like this is just fine. But what you do have to do is you have to, in this table, which I'm now looking at here, in this table, we have 2 rows where the mobile and landline information is uh, how am I going to say that? There are different rows for that, but the service information is the same for both of them. And how that's achieved, and the clue is given to you there by spanning 2 rows. And there's actually a little command that we use, which is called row span. So you're going to do a row span on this. Now, when you do the row span, you actually have to code 2 lines or 2 rows in the table to achieve the span. The first one, where the retail shops are, in that table heading, that's where it's not a table heading, sorry, the table headings are at the top. In that table detail, we're going to actually put the row span command, and we'll say how many rows is this retail shops going to cover. And so this would be a row span of 2. So retail shops, that little bit of table detail will have to be spanned over 2 rows. And so there's going to be a row following the retail shops, which is spanned onto, and that will end up, instead of having 3 columns, so there's 3 columns here, retail shops, mobile, and landline. The next row will only have 2 columns because of the spanning of the retail shops over it. And so let me show you what I mean by that. So if we open that with Notepad, and I'm showing you Notepad to show you it's not really all that different from the other thing, but we see that sort of happening here. I hope you see that here. When we get down to the retail shops, we put inside the TD tag, we say row span, and we say how many rows is retail shops going to cover. It's going to cover 2 rows. But then look, the next row, there's only 2 columns because the first column is spanned by retail shops. And so that's how that works. If we'd done it 3, if we'd done a 3 here, we could have done a 3 here. Let me just show you what I mean. if I change this to a 3, then we would have to take this shipping out. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut it out, and I'll paste it back in a minute. So let's save that and run it again. This is just to demonstrate, right? So now you see retail shops is spanning 3 rows. Okay, so I just put it back. Um, so if I just put it back by putting this in here, so we put our shipping back in and change this back to 2. So hopefully that you can see there, how does the the row span work, right? So I saved that, right? Yes, okay, I think I did. And yeah, now we see it's back to spanning 2 rows. Now there's row span. There's already there's another uh, very similar command, which would be column span. So what you could do is we could have spanned these two things into the same heading at the top, and that happens too, and it works in basically the same way. So there's row span and col span. We're only using row span. Now, the other thing that you have to do for this exercise, besides creating all of this by typing it, is you have for the toll free, not applicable when roaming out of the country, you have to make that italic using an EM tag. And so I'll take you back to this, and you can see it here that we used an EM tag that actually produces the um, the italic there. Now, I hope that. All right, so we got people asking for extended deadline. I think that's okay. Yeah, no problem. Um, yes, uh, and I'm good. I have only one friend. People are rude. Uh, I'm sorry that people are rude. Don't worry, I don't have any friends. No, just kidding. Uh, it's good to have few friends. Um, We been yeah, that's correct. And I'm thankful for that, Susanna. Oh, so what's that about, Amar? I hope everything's all right. I'm just looking to see if there's anything in the comments that I need to respond to. Um, right, guys. I think that's kind of it. That's the exercise. I think I've explained it. So now is just, do you have a comment? Yes, of course you are, and I'm your friend too, Amma. Um, that's so sad. BFF, yes. Okay. Let me just. This exercise, assignment 2, or lab 2, sorry, no, it's not an assignment. It's lab 2. You have to create 2 web pages. You see here 2 separate different web pages. Contact support HTML and product details HTML. It's important, you're going to be using these again in later exercises, right? So in this lab, the product details HTML, you've already got it. You're just tweaking it, editing it. But the contact support HTML, you have to make that new and fresh. Okay, new and fresh. And this is what it's going to be. This is contact support. I mean, there's a bit of CSS there to make that. You don't need to do that CSS, right? Anybody copies that CSS, I know that you're just copying stuff from my thing, right? You don't need that. All you really need is you can leave it just sort of flat without the CSS. That's in a later exercise. So sorry about the CSS. But sorry, I had a wire underneath the roller on the chair. Yeah, so really what you need to concentrate on is this stuff here, getting the row span right, doing the EM, getting your
During the
table
test,
headings
do we
at the
have
top.
the access to Google? Did you ask them?
Um, I got as far as learning that we will do the test will be you writing programs on um, on the editor, and the editor might be Notepad. I'm sorry, I haven't got an answer on Google yet. I did put a question out there, and yeah, I will get to you. Certainly by the end of this week, we will have a fairly good idea what that test is going to be. I think that you could assume that based on tests in a very similar course to this that we had previously, we used to disconnect the computers. So that would be a negative then, wouldn't it? That would be like, no, no access to Google. I'll tell you what. Hey, you know what? Here's a hint. This is um, this is what one student. I saw the student do this when we had a test on this like 2 years ago, and I let them do it because it wasn't against the rule that we said, right? So the rule, what we did is I disconnected the network connection from all of the computers when they started the test. And so that would mean that they couldn't do Google and they couldn't use W3 because W3 schools is not available because it's online. It's on the cloud. But what we found, yeah, your mobiles will be at the front of the class, right? Yeah, so forget about the hotspot. What we found was that you can download from the internet a searchable sort of form of W3 schools. So, and one student had done that, and perfectly fine. It was within the rules, right? So yeah. Now that was a little bit different because they were using the computers that they had used all semester, and we knew that they had work on those computers, and we let them have access to that work. So, that, yeah, that's because we don't expect you to memorize every sort of thing on HTML. Anyway, so we will see. I'm not sure what PLG means, but I hope it means something good. Let us come a day before, sir. Yeah. Yes, what a great idea. See, now you're thinking. All right, so yeah, maybe that's possible. Yeah, so you could. I mean, to me, that would be okay if you had some kind of repository of stuff. Now, you could call that a cheat sheet, but it's not the same as you asking somebody a direct question, right? Or or searching on the internet. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see. And certainly anything that like that, I will have to talk to the other teachers about it and make sure that everybody's okay with that. So, I mean, worst case scenario in the test, you will have no access to anything. And sort of best case scenario, you could have um, access to the internet and Google away. And sort of intermediate scenario is that um, we might uh, let you disconnect the computers, but anything that you've got on there, and you might be able to bring in some code. I would be happy if I get to use VS Code. Um, Yeah, I'm not sure. If we so do you see that Notebook plus plus is pretty similar? But yeah, I'm not sure about. I had to give you a heads up that maybe VS Code will not be available because if we're going to use VS Code, we have to get it installed on the computers, and it's quite possible that you'll be in a room with Macs, and I don't know about Macs. Are we giving a test on HTML or how to copy professionally? Yeah. Uh, I'm not going to comment on that. All right. Any other sort of questions? Oh, we're still